What's up, YouTube? It is your boy, um, Judah here. This channel is gonna be Commander of Judah, and the reason why I'm making this video, if you was to see right here, it is 2:30 a.m. and so I can't really sleep. I'm about to get up at 3 a.m. to train anyways. I've been waking up off and on since like 1:40 or something. Like I went to sleep at like 11, but I can't sleep. So why not make a video? And I've been meaning to make videos about the Bible, meaning the Book of Law, because I don't call the Old Testament not anymore. I call it the Book of Law. Um, and the reason why I say that is because the book is a book of laws. It's not necessarily it's a spiritual book, but it's not necessarily a book where you just go in and sing songs and I have some more videos and stuff too about church and just things like that. But the reason why I'm making this video is because of a good friend of the channel's, Judah I Am Kings. I've never met him in real life or anything like that, but I've associated with his channel in his comment section in his community page. Go give him go hit the subscribe button over there and go to his community page and really get in tune with what he has to say, because I believe he has a lot to offer. When you read the Old Testament and you read it whole from the front to the back, and you would realize that God is with this man. I'm not saying this man's a prophet, but there's something about this guy that is very, very, very special. Um, and so when he brought up colorism in the Book of Law, meaning the Old Testament, I wanted to make a video too because there were some verses where I remembered since the first time I read that Bible starting 3 years ago. I read the whole Old Testament two times. I'm on my third time, and I'm currently in the middle of the Bible right now. Um, and so when I sit up there and I look at colorism in the Bible, the big problem with this is when people say that, oh, well, there may not, that's not true, or that's not a real thing or something like that. People have been making fun of light skinned people on Vine. Started with King Batch, started with various others. People have been enslaving lighter tribes and stuff like that due to their skin color. So it is definitely a real thing. When you go to Song of Solomon, verse 1, I'm at chapter 1, verse 5 through 6, I am black. Once again, if the Old Testament was full of white people, then why? And it's not attacking white people or nothing like that. I'm just talking about just biblically, just talking to scholars and just people like that. If people was any other race, why to say I am black right here? It doesn't make any sense. And so it says, I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept. So basically, in a sense, is they damn near enslaved this man. They damn near enslaved this man. I'm not gonna say enslaved him, because to me that would be meaning that, like, a slave doesn't have their own vineyard. And in my opinion, um, when you look at these next two, um, when you look at these next two verses and stuff like that, the stories that I'm about to read from the Book of Law, meaning the Old Testament, you'll start to sit up there and start to see more and more things that I'm sitting up there and that I'm speaking about. Because a lot of these people in the Bible, when their skin was was darker, or when they started from a lighter skin tone to a darker skin tone, was because of extreme heat to the exposure to the heat. Some of it could have dealt with sickness, like leprosy or just whatever. Miriam, for example, for her and Aaron, Mac talking on Moses, and God came down and said, I ain't having that shit. I would have. I don't know what I would have done. Aaron, I mean, it's not like we're gonna be able to run. I mean, let's keep it real. I was gonna make a joke, but I don't want to be on this bad side, man. But a lot of the stuff was due to like, as far as like darker skin was just either, and that's not saying that people wasn't because King David was essentially my color or maybe like a little bit lighter. You know what I'm saying? Because they said that his skin color was ruby and reddish, so ruby and reddish would be the color of like a penny. A penny starts out new when it's fresh and it's new when it's not used when it hasn't been passed over so many pockets. It starts out shiny. You know what I'm saying? But when you expose it to the heat and the elements and stuff like that, it starts to tend to get darker. And they were judged for having darker skin tones. You know, they weren't necessarily being racist towards, but it's a word called colorism, to where you say like, oh well, since he's light skinned, Rebby and Rudish, whatever, he's not as strong as or no, since I'm either a lighter skin tone. If I'm a darker skin tone, I'm looking at the light skinned person and saying, oh, he's not as strong as me. But if I'm looking at if I'm a lighter person and I'm judging the darker person, is because the darker person was judging me. And so this has all been going on uh, since like Africans. If you go and look at their history, they enslaved their own kind when it came to lighter, you know, when it came to darker tribes enslaving lighter tribes. And the Bible was essentially a bit different because it was the lighter tribes that mainly in the house of Judah, the sons of Israel, was enslaving the or not enslaving, but they was forcing the darker skinned people to work harder than the lighter skin tone. If you go over there in Cuba, the same thing happens over there. They judge the lighter skin tone of Cubans are whoever, they'll judge those who have a darker skin tone. This is a real thing. Lamentations verse 5 through 10. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. If you go to the full chapter, and I don't like reading the King James version because it literally has a lot of mistranslations in there, and black people love that King James version. Real shit, motherfuckers. But yeah, and I got a video about church too. Well, that preacher was a real nice man, but I wanted to, oh man, scumbag motherfucker. But uh, let me see. And so from that same quote I just read, Lamentations verse 5 through 10, if you was to go slightly above it, it says, our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities, meaning we have taken on their sins, which is true because God said it. Um, if you go down to verse 12, Lamentations verse 5, verse 12, it says, princes are hanged up by their hand. The faces of the elders were not honored. So basically, they was killing their own leadership. This is what happens when you put power in street niggas' hands. And I got street friends, but they would understand where I'm coming from. When you got somebody that doesn't know how to control their impulse and they're quick to jump at everything, when you have a savage like this doing something, when they get a power, they'll convince one dumbass to go and do something to somebody, and this was your leadership. And it says they ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah, which is verse 11. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. So basically, the joy of our heart is ceased, our dance is turning in the morning. So basically, what they're saying is, if you look at today's times, basically what a rapper is, this is what he meant by saying that that basically the young men from their music. So they ran the elders off the gate, but they're playing music. And so, like I said, if you go to verse 10, Lamentations chapter 5, verse 10, our skin was black but like an oven because of the terrible famine. Now, that doesn't talk about colorism, but the problem is with that verse is that these people were were being rude to, or it just showed the. Sometimes it can just simply just be, you know, you're just a darker skinned person or a dark person. Your sister or your brother can be light skinned, but you can come out black or chocolate. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy how things work. And then if you go to Job 30:30, my skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. So basically, it's an extreme fatigue or it's a sickness that he was talking about. Extreme exposure to the heat. I mean, he says, I am a brother to dragons and a companion to owls. So basically, what he's saying is his brothers, whoever that he may consider a brother, they were to me like a predator to him. But his companions, those who he considered his close friends, were silent when these things went on. And so basically, that's why these things need to be spoken up about. Um, if you go and look at T'Challa and stuff like that, if they would have put T'Challa as like somebody like my color or somebody that like is like ruby and reddish, the color of a penny, they would have had a fucking fit. Because you're putting a black American on the crown. You're putting a black American is a Hebrew. You're putting a Hebrew on a African throne. That's blasphemy, even in my eyes. And so, mm, when I look at these things and stuff like that, it's really just sitting up there, and it's really telling me um, that when you look at the Old Testament, there's colorism in there. People have been making jokes about lighter skin tones within the black community, and it's not white folks doing it. White folks don't, or not white folks, but just people who are racist of any nationality towards lighter skin tones. Basically, colorism is another term for being racist. If you was to go and look at how people are treated, it's just it basically just from like Vine and stuff like that. This stuff has been going on, like I said, since Canaanite days, when Africans were known as Canaanites, when Black Americans were known as Hebrews, the sons of Israel, not Israelites, because the Israelites were killed off by the Assyrians, while Judah was drug off to Babylon and shipped for everything, like it was a stick up. And then when you go many generations later, because people can say, "Oh, well, that was 500 years ago." You don't know that, because the Bible never gave. No religion gives a exact date nor a time. In the Old Testament, it may be like, "Oh, well, in the seventh month on like the third day or something like that." That would be July 3rd or the 3rd of July. So like people really be bullshitting and I'm really getting on like the church's case too, but I'm not gonna say it in a way to where like these people are like necessarily evil, but they are simply misleading each other. It's like a dog chasing its tail, literally. And I'm gonna tell you some things that it's nothing news breaking and stuff like that. It's not. I'm just giving my opinion, and an opinion is an opinion, but this opinion turns out to be a fact. And when this Iran war is over with, you better stop doing that shit, because when the God of Israel I am comes down here, and y'all talking about, oh, people think that they the sons of Israel or that they the original Hebrews, you are dumbass. I wouldn't want to be you. I'm all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna drop a hint to you the way that Alec from Dragon Ball Super, the one that was in the Granola series, the one that was Gas's big brother, when he told Bardock when Bardock was fighting Gas, way before even the original Dragon Ball, but it came out in Super. He said, "Don't be surprised if something drop on your head. When it comes to you Christians, Quran, motherfucker, the Quran, it don't matter. You know, um, at the end of the day, you're all going to sleep. I don't know who. I could be going to sleep. You know what I'm saying? But you know the difference between me is I woke up to this information, and you did not. I figured out. I'm 26 now. I figured out something in 23 years that not even people in their 50s or 60s have figured out. So that was lame as hell. I'm sorry. But have a good day though.